cold over here in Minnesota.
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, joined by the wonderful Marco from Clutch Team Sports. Hi Marco, how are you doing today?
What's up? What's up? Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing really good, although I feel like the last couple weeks when we've been chatting, I've been like, oh, I'm so excited, it's sunny and nice. And then today it's like, throw us back to winter. It's gray and cloudy and raining outside. I'm staring at my window, so
Yeah, it's
it's
super
a little
freezing.
dark, that's why.
Super freezing where I'm at. I mean, it's not technically freezing. It's 57 degrees, but like when it's 75, 80 degrees the past couple of days or week,
Right?
and then it drops to 57 out of nowhere, it's like, all right, come on now, stop. Whatever governor or whatever's messing with the weather up there, they need to put the climate back to like 80 degrees and sunny. I'd appreciate it.
My friend Lacey, I've been on and off staying with her in New York when I've been out there, and she's told me about like they have this thing where it like teases spring, so like it's horrific, like actually freezing weather there, like snowing and all that, and then there'll be these like 1 or 2 weekends before actual spring where for like a weekend it'll be like sunny and 70 and like beautiful, and you just like get this hope. You're like, oh my God, it's actually gonna be nice. And then like 2 days later, it's back to it. And that's how it is here in the Bay Area for me right now. I was soaking up all the sunshine, and then the last 2 days I've been like, where'd it go?
Yeah, it's for sure. The sunshine's been nice, and then the past couple of days it started raining on Wednesday, I believe, or last night maybe, and then today has been raining. So
it's I know that freaking all the coaches and everyone were all in Florida freaking getting their tan on and all that probably. We haven't talked since then, but a bunch of stuff has happened this week, Marco. I forget who I was talking about, but it's been like such an eventful off season. I feel like every single week there's something new happening. And I don't even want to jump immediately into those pressers because I want to talk about something that happened last night. Brandon Aiyuk was on a show called The Nightcap with Shannon Sharp, which is interesting. He also has that like really viral. Have you seen the show
the
that
Nightcap?
he did? It had like Cat Williams and all
that.
That's a different one. But then he also has The Nightcap with Ocho Cinco, right?
Yeah. So he has Club Shay Shay, and then he has the Nightcap. So he has two podcasts. He has the Nightcap with Ocho, and then he has his own where he brings random people on. That's Club Shay Shay.
Yeah. That one has been interesting. Did you listen to that Cat? I know this is like not 49ers related, but the Cat Williams one, that one was crazy.
I listened to pieces of it usually with Uncle Shay, so Shannon Sharp. It depends. Like I'll tune into some of his shows, like on Club Shay Shay. But the Nightcap one, I watch that like on a regularly. It's comedy. Like that's to me, to be honest, like that's one of the best podcasts out right now. And like it's interesting because they both have this like energy where it's like they're hilarious, and it's like
they have really good banter.
Yeah, and like it's like a big brother little brother kind of banter, and like they'll talk smack to each other, and it's like, all right, that's what it's about. Like those who's going at it and enjoying it, so it's pretty fun.
I was just talking with my friend, dad, I don't know, someone about this, where like I'm a podcast person, and it's so interesting. Like I don't discriminate, but I have like different things that I like about different shows. So some shows I'll listen to because I find them more informative and like I get more information out of them and I feel like I'm learning. But then other times it's like that's actually not the thing that I'm most interested in. The thing that I like is it feels like the two hosts or people who are going back and forth have like a good style of
just
communication.
Supernatural.
Yeah. And then like I feel like I don't know, with those ones, this is kind of parasocial, but like I feel like I'm like part of it almost. Like if I'm listening, because I just feel like it's like a group of friends talking. I'm like, oh, I have thoughts too, which is probably why I made my own podcast. I was always listening to them and I was like, I want to say my things.
It's funny because my wife, she listens to a lot of podcasts. Like we don't really watch TV unless it's like a show that like we're binge watching.
Did you watch Love is Blind?
I think I did. I'm not too sure. Like we just finished watching The Bachelor, but like usually I usually watch like crime shows or stuff like that. Like that's what we're more into.
I was just reading this book. It's like it's a
like a mystery crime book, which is so not like I am a fiction girly because I lived I in high school stayed with my friend Lacey, her family, and both her dad and her mom were like English teachers. She's now getting the reason she's in New York is she's getting her PhD in English. So there was always like fiction books all around, like adult fiction books. Her mom used to go to like these kind of I don't know, like hostings where authors would come. And I'm so into fiction books, but normally I don't know if it's just like a girly thing, but I kind of like the gossipy romance ones. But one of my friends recommended me this like murder mystery one, and I'm so interested in it. And they actually didn't we were just together and they accidentally took the book in their bag. And I'm like, I want to know what happens. So I'm like, I need to get that book back.
Yeah, like she watches like some of the ones that she subscribed to is I want to say like Jeff FM, um Monet McMichael and stuff like that. Like so like stuff that's like just random, and then like
Yeah.
she has some that are heck of funny that I watch. Like they're just comedies, like there's stuff that they're saying. I'm like, what? Like, all right, but like it's just a variety of different things she watches, and then obviously when we watch TV together is usually if she's watching like a podcast, like I'll listen into it like with her like while I'm doing stuff. Um, but yeah, I
I
think
have
podcasts are good.
is she I feel like a lot of girls, maybe that's a stereotype, really like true crime
Oh yeah,
type
she loves true
things.
crime.
My little sister is so into that, and it's so I'm like a scaredy cat, so I'm not into that. And one of my best friends, Angela, she also loves like all day she's listening to this. I'm like, how do you sleep at night? Like, I would be so scared all the time. I'll come in and my little sister will be like showering or something, and I'll be like, hey, Lonnie. And it's just like describing some like gruesome murder. I'm like, why are you? It's like a beautiful day out. Why is this?
Yeah, that's
So,
her favorite. It's true crime.
oh my goodness. But to be fair, then I'm always like, listening to some football thing, and she's like, "Well, you're doing that." So, I'm like, "Yeah, but this is actually interesting and lighthearted. It's not friggin'. I'm not like scared to go to bed after like listening to friggin' Grant Cohn argue if they should draft the next quarterback or whatever." um, but anyways, Brandon Aiyuk was on the nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco, Chad Ocho Cinco, and he had some comments about his contract negotiations, about the tweet that he made to Mike Tomlin, and just kind of where he was at. And I actually had a positive takeaway from it. It sounded to me like Brandon Aiyuk wanted to remain a 49er. Like at least his team is in negotiations to be a 49er. I don't know what just happened, but my light just went out. But yeah, what was your takeaway from the podcast? Really quick.
So I know I said the other day on Rob's Stats show, Gold Standard. I had already heard that like the things behind the scenes are a lot different than what's been portrayed or how the media has turned things with BA. So like for Aiyuk coming out saying like, oh, like I'm at the team facility, like he's literally said he was at the team facility this morning, which was last night. So he was at the team facility. He said that he understands it's a business. He understands that there's two professionals working. His agent, the Niners, like doing professional things, and he's gonna leave it towards them. And I thought it was interesting how he was like, "Well, my plan was to celebrate my birthday and then go into negotiations and put pressure on my agent to start doing things." What's funny is things came out before his birthday, like, "Oh, he's projected to get traded." He never cared because he knew like he wasn't worried about a contract until post birthday, and that was when that was after couple of announcements came out. For example, the Jags,
The
Steelers.
one, right?
Yeah, and then I thought it was another thing I thought funny is the when all this came out, I was like, okay, he's toying with the fan base, right? Like he's messing around with the fan base. He doesn't truly think of anything. Like he doesn't think anything's going the wrong way. Like when he tweeted, "Money talks, bullshit walks." He literally like said about even with the Mike Tomlin, "Hey twin," like they're saying we look like twins. He's like, I thought it was funny. Like
Yeah.
thought it poked fun.
He did say he thought he was like putting a little bit of pressure on the organization, which in my head, I don't exactly think he has like the leverage to do that, but
No.
it definitely didn't come off as like intense at all about it. Like he was like laughing and he was just like, oh, like he's just having fun with it, kind of reacting to the rumors as he hears them. Cause we don't really think about this, but he said he's like, I heard about these things like over Twitter, like this wasn't stuff my agent told me. This wasn't things whether, I wasn't in contact with the Steelers, with the Jags. I wasn't even in contact with the 49ers about starting my negotiations yet.
Yeah.
Like I was just hearing these things on Twitter and kind of reacting as those were happening.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting because like some of the stuff he was saying, like he understands who he is, and then just to go up, shout out to Jason, shout out to him saying what's up to us. I believe that is, I'm not trying to be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that is Samoan. Talofa is in Samoan. It's like saying hi in Samoan. So I believe I'm right. Um, Shout out to you, Jason. So for me, it's one of those ones where he understands who he is as a player and who he is as a person. He talked about how he understands his worth and he understands
Right.
like this season, what he did this season. Yeah, he speaks. Yeah, he hold himself highly. Like he's like, I understand like how good I am. I know what I'm bringing into the locker room. Like that was a big comment too. Is like, hey, I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna keep doing.
He honestly seemed like unbothered, right? Where he even talked, by the way, he said, good job with knowing what that meant and good pronunciation as well.
Grew up with a lot of Samoans and play football with a lot of Samoans. So I like to try to understand like what they like. For example, if they're saying hi or what's up, they use a lot of things. So a lot of them like they use oos and stuff like that. So like I try to understand what's being said and if I'm saying stuff the right way. So appreciate you, Jason.
Hell yeah. But I was gonna say Aiyuk seemed like almost calm, where I feel like worst case scenario, right, is that the 49ers say, no, Brandon Aiyuk, you have to play out your 5th-year option. He even not, and obviously this would not be his first choice, and I don't think he thinks it's going to come to this, but the energy that he brought was kind of like, I know what I can do, and if I'm in this worst case scenario, I know that I'm going to go out and I'm going to perform extremely well, and I'm going to get my money at some point. You know what I mean?
He pretty much
Obviously,
was when I
he
took that
wants
comment as like he was like, all
now.
right, let me play on my 50-year option. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
so
Like, I'll
expensive.
get even better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I'll
gonna be
get even
so
more.
expensive. You're not gonna be able to pay me. So it was more like I
Okay,
took that comment.
I'm really glad that you took that same. I like had
Yeah.
that same takeaway, but I was like, oh, maybe I'm like reading too much into it. I'm glad you also felt that way.
Yeah, like that when I heard that, I was like, okay, like he understands, like, all right, play me on my 50-year option. I'm gonna make my market so big that you're not gonna be able to pay me, and I'm gonna get my bag regardless. Like either you're gonna pay me or someone else is gonna pay me. So if I have to play on that 50-year option, that's fine. I also one of the comments I also took from him that I liked was he was pretty much saying like, I thought this was highly of him in the terms of he was like I said, they gonna do it with me or without me. You're gonna have a better chance with me. We'll
Yeah,
just leave it at that. And he's not wrong. The Niners are having a much better chance going to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl with Brandon Aiyuk because he's their best receiver, and he understands that. And I thought
yeah.
when he spoke about him being the number one, you're like, I'm not gonna get into that because he knew what Shannon Sharp and Ocho were trying to get him to do. He was
Yeah.
he was
He's
he was
smart.
gonna
He's smart.
he knew and he was like, I'm not gonna get into who's 1, 2, 3, or 4. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And I was
And
like, he knows.
I loved his because I feel like a lot of fans, especially during like contract negotiations, you get some fans, and I'm not in this level of thinking where they assume if a player is trying to get their value, get as much money as they can, that that player would, cares more about money than championships and more about getting paid than championships. I loved Brandon Ayuk's emphasis on winning a championship and how that was his most important goal, and him saying, we should have had 2 championships already. In my head, I was like, ooh, who's that a shot at? Kyle. Because he also said that when he said, since the day I walked in this locker room, from this morning when I left, after lunch, I have shown up, been the ultimate professional, worked extremely hard. There's never a day that you could have doubted my work ethic. And to me, that was screaming, hey, what is he saying about that doghouse? And does he have, and I'm not saying this, I don't think this makes him not want to sign with the 49ers, but I think he is bringing to the table, like, hey, you didn't always treat me the best. And I've been stand up, and you're going to pay me as if I've been stand up. You're not going to come into this and be like, oh, well, no. And for all the people that are saying, oh, well, like, how would he perform, if he really was that true number one, if Debo wasn't on the team? Well, the reason he was playing his rookie year is because everyone was injured. So we've seen him as the fourth option, and we've seen him when the team has had to rely on him and the number one corners on him. And he's excelled in every situation the 49ers has put him in. So I think he was sitting there like, kind of like, hey, championships are what's most important to me. The 49ers want to win a championship. We should have won 2 championships already. Potentially, if I would have got the ball more, we would have had one this year. Brock Purdy's my guy, and the team's going to be better off if they're extending me and Brock Purdy at the same time. That's how they're going to win a friggin' Super Bowl. And I'm going to be the one that's teaching the young guys. I'm the one that's setting the standard. I'm the one that's coming into practice in shape, working hard.
And that was kind of a shot at Debo.
Yep.
I took that as a shot at it probably isn't a shot at Debo because they're boys.
But just like understanding, like, even if you're boys, you can kind of, like if you have a stronger work ethic than your friend, right? Like,
and like it's one of those ones where like I felt like he may have gotten offended by Debo, because Debo did speak on, I believe it was the Kay Adams show, and like he may have felt like, hey, bro, like don't be talking about me because I didn't talk about you during your contract extension negotiations. Like,
to me,
like don't get involved because it could be that like he did get offended by that. Like I don't know. Like obviously this is speculation. Like we're going a little deep into like trying to dissect what he said, but like the biggest thing I took from that interview is what I had heard is true. Behind the scenes, it's not as bad as the media has made it. He literally said, we got professionals working on both sides. Hopefully we can come to a professional agreement. And what I like,
sorry to interrupt you, but for people who didn't see it, because I mentioned this to you before the show started, that I saw you were on with Rob, and I do feel like a lot of fans, when seeing the tweets and when seeing, it's been kind of confusing from Brandon Aiyuk if you don't know like behind the scenes, because sometimes he comes out and he's like, let's not worry about it. John Lynch is over there like, let's not worry about it. Kyle Shanahan is basically saying how important it is to have a guy like BA on the team and for the future and to be able to win. Jed York is saying, if they had an unlimited salary cap that he would have been signed a month ago, and that there's, they always want to keep their guys. And basically everyone was kind of downplaying the Flames and saying he's going to come back. But then you had these instances where Brandon Aiyuk is tweeting and you're hearing these rumors of, hey, the 49ers are taking calls. So I think as a fan who doesn't have the behind the scenes, it's been a little confusing for BA then to come out and be like, well, why would, everything's fine. It's like, well, you were like hinting that you wanted to go to the Steelers like a week ago. So can you, because I know that you have some connections behind the scenes, can you say what you've heard about these negotiations and maybe them not being as contentious as it felt like they were a week or two ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've talked to a guy and he's like, look, behind the scenes, it's not that bad. Like it's been pretty solid. He was like, it's not, they're both professional like sides. And he was like, BA is doing this to the media because he understands like, hey, I don't have leverage. Like they understand they don't have leverage. Yeah. So anything he says to the media, it makes the 49ers act in good faith. Now, like, oh, are they doing him dirty?
Kind of like, keeping you in line.
Yeah, like making sure like they're in check. And one thing I did appreciate about Brandon Aiyuk during his talk is he mentioned something that I think is bigger than what people understand. He mentioned every day is like a different day when it comes to contract negotiations. And it's true.
I heard that.
Because what happens is one day, contract negotiations, you hear one thing, and then the next day you're like, okay, well, counter offer comes in. And the team doesn't like that. They're okay. Well, if you want this, then I got to take away this. So like you're taking a step forward, but then you take a step back. So it's constantly like it's a true negotiation. And from what I've heard, no one in the building is worried that BA won't be on the team next year for the future. Like everyone is like, no, we're all in on Brandon Aiyuk. Like we truly think Aiyuk's going to be on this roster. And there's nothing to worry about. So like I think him poking stuff like, oh, the money talks, BS walks, I think that's just him having fun. Like
Yeah.
the Mike Tomlin comment, I think is him having fun, understanding how the 49ers fans, how us as content creators are reacting to it. And he enjoys that because one, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't get talked about by the media that often because he's the fourth option on the team, even though he's an elite receiver. He's talked about in a sense of he is an upcoming receiver. And he wants to change that narrative in terms of I'm one of the best receivers in the league. I'm
Mhm.
getting paid as a top receiver in the league. And I think that's a little bit to do with it as well. So there's a lot of things going on. There's no bad ill towards him and John personally or him and Kyle personally. And that's why he said professionally, we hope to come to an agreement. Like, cause he understands, hey, there's a business side of this. The
Yeah.
people side, him and they're friends. Like they're cool. They're good people. Like he's not trying to like make it look like, hey, you know what? F you, Kyle, F you, John. No, he even says like, no, it's professional now. Like this is the professional side. Personal side, they're all gravy.
And I will say, when you're saying that, like I listened back to John Lynch, and when John Lynch was talking about when he was asked about BA, he I feel like was the most optimistic about re-signing BA, basically kind of going through that, having a guy who they drafted, who's then performed as well as Brandon Aiyuk, that for them, that's a guaranteed guy that they want back. And John Lynch kind of reiterated that although these things take time, he had no doubt that the 49ers want Brandon Aiyuk, and as long as both sides want it, that it will get done. And that's actually as optimistic. If you listen back to with Nick Bosa, he talked a lot about the timeline pressure. If you remember that last year, I
Mm-hmm.
listened back to this same, if you like type in owners meetings, John Lynch did the same thing last year. Same thing with Deebo Samuel. With Deebo, it was much more contentious. And when you listened to John Lynch answer questions about it, he seemed much less certain just in his speech, not saying that he was or wasn't, but just in the way that he talked about it. He talked with much less certainty about extending Deebo Samuel. And so ironically, at this point, I actually think things are more positive with Brandon Aiyuk and with the future of keeping Brandon Aiyuk with the team than it's been with previous guys that they have ended up extending. So maybe with this,
Absolutely.
maybe they're looking, who knows if it will actually get done this fast, but maybe they are looking to getting him done, because with Deebo Samuel, what it was like after training camp, right? Or
He was right.
he
It
like
was right
held
after
in or
training
held
camp
out or
started. It was Yeah, it
yeah.
was during training
And
camp
then
because it
with
was a couple days, maybe like a week or two after training camp
yeah,
started.
late August. And then with Nick Bosa, wasn't it like September? It was like basically week 1 was almost happening before he signed.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe with Brandon Aiyuk, as Brandon Aiyuk is saying, like they want guys like him in the offseason programs, because other guys watch
It's
BA
affected them.
and he's a leader, he's an example. So maybe with, I've always hoped that they would do this, but it just hasn't been how they've ran their organization so far. But it would be nice. Maybe they're looking to extend BA a little bit sooner, in the I would love it if they looked at, July instead of August, June instead of August, whatever.
And it could be the fact that the Niners realized that, like, hey, not having Nick Bosa during camp
Yeah,
affected the
like
growth
learning
of
from their
Colton
past
McKivitz,
mistakes.
affects the growth of Colton McKivitz. It affected his play to start the season. Debo came in out of shape a little bit. He had to take a period just to get in shape during training camp. So it could be
Yeah.
a lot of things where, like, you know what, hey, we can't do this with our star players anymore because it affects everything around them. If all the other players get affected by, hey,
Nick
Nick Bosa
Bosa
isn't here,
admitted, right? Like,
yeah,
hey,
like
this
that
is
affected him.
yeah. Yeah.
So it could be a lot of things like playing factor, and I think the Niners definitely want to get it sooner than later, especially because the longer they wait, if a guy like T Higgins gets traded today and he gets paid 27 million per year, well, the number just went up on Brandon Aiyuk because Brandon Aiyuk has better stats than him. He's probably a better receiver than him. And then if CD Lamb gets paid or someone else gets paid, now the Niners are screwed when it comes to the price. So it's definitely a lot of things going on and factoring into it. So I think it gets done sooner than later. I think I could see it being done. Um, not I would say probably June-ish, because the Niners want to go into the draft. They want to have things situated, and as long as you have a set price on what you kind of understand what he wants before the draft, you're good.
Now, I have a question for you, because this is kind of silly, like maybe a little off topic, but you said it. Do you think that Brandon Aiyuk is a better receiver than CeeDee Lamb?
So that's hard because CD is CD, man. Like the difference is CD gets super
Like with
targets.
that
I would I
opportunity,
would
with
I
that
technically
opportunity,
would I would take CD right now, only because we've seen him with the opportunity. We've
yeah.
seen him with less weapons, and he's still like teams are bracketing. Teams are doing so many different things to CD, and they can't stop him. For example, if we look at the Cowboys, right? Like, there's no true number 2 receiver on that end. Versus the Niners, you have a true number 2 in Debo. You have a tight end 1 in Kittle. You have Christian McCaffrey. So, like, truly, we don't know what Brandon Aiyuk is in terms of like the true number 1, which I know what he is. Like, I know he's a true number 1, but he's doing it without help, and he's not being able to be stopped. Like, he takes
Does
go over
Brandon
games.
Aiyuk have a weakness to his game? Like,
I
I
don't
would
see
have
it.
said not
I
this
think the
last
only
season, but I think earlier on in his career, maybe he struggled with drops, or I don't even know if he actually struggled with drops, or there was just a few crucial ones where it felt like, hey, you can make this one big play and you're going to really like solidify yourself as that number 1. And it felt like he missed some of those opportunities earlier on in his career. But then this last season, you know what I mean? Like, he was making those spectacular catches that are kind of like miracles, like in that Lions game where, bounces off the guy's helmet, like those kind of moments that you're always going to remember as a fan, because it's kind of like, oh, that was just fate to happen. But yeah, route running wise, speed wise, blocking,
I
attitude
don't the
within the
only
locker room.
I would say the only weakness Brandon has is the weakness to go up to Kyle and say, "Throw me the ball more,"
Yeah,
or
right.
"Feed me
We've
more."
seen Debo do that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say that's his weakness. Where I don't know if it's a
That's
fear of
interesting.
his, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the only thing I would say his weakness is like during the Super Bowl, he's whipping on these
Like
corners
demand,
and
demand.
go demand the ball or go to Brock, throw me the damn ball. I'm open. Like
Yeah.
that's really the only weakness he has. To be honest, like I think he's a complete receiver, and I think the more Kyle trusts him, the more he's gonna go crazy. Um, but I do know we have a couple other topics. I don't want to just
Yes.
fully talk Aiyuk. I don't want to.
Really quickly, we'll switch to Eric. Eric Armstead came out on his podcast. He at first released a clip that, in my opinion, didn't make him look too good, and it was awkward because it was from his own camp. But then when he unblurred out the number, which was the number that the 49ers had offered him in order to like take a pay cut and stay with the team. 49ers offered Eric Armstead $6 million, a 1-year deal. It was $8 million with incentives. And I have an interesting like way that I want to approach this topic. Is it possible? Because I think that that's such a low number compared to what he was supposed to be paid, and then compared to what he ended up getting with the Jaguars. Do you think it's possible that the 49ers offered him that knowing that he would say no, but wanted to like, is that in some way the 40, like, you know how Eric Armstead said, I felt disrespected? Was it maybe their way of trying to honor the fact that they drafted him and he's been with the team so long, letting him deny it versus going to him and cutting, saying, we're going to cut you? Like, does actually lowballing him and letting him be like, I'm going to take my, talents elsewhere, is that actually in some ways more respectful? Because I imagine
I
that they knew he wasn't going to agree to that.
But I think it's
Or is
also
it
more
the team just
disrespectful to do. I think it's also more disrespectful to do that. And shout out BA, shout out to Jason. I do agree. Closed mouths don't get fed, so BA needs to do that. But for the situation, I think you definitely got to look at Armstead's perspective, right? Like the team is planning on like, hey, you know what? Let's offer him this very cheap contract that we know he's not going to accept, because we don't want to just go up to him like, hey, we're going to cut you. We're going to try to trade you or not cut you. We got to remember, like during this, he's talked about during this process in February, they actually approached him about an extension. how do you go from an extension to take about a 2/3
I
pay
like that
cut?
they were just gonna keep throwing the money down the freaking line.
But
'Cause
so an
that's what
extension
it
is a little
sounds like.
different though, because you could do two different things with an extension. You could rip up the old contract in a way and say, "Hey, this is the new contract," so it drops cap numbers. So you could do that actually. So for him, the extension would have benefited the Niners. So initially, start talking about an extension, and then you go to, "Hey, you know what? We'll give you $6 million on a 1 year deal. Like you got to
Yeah,
take this."
it's like, what the
And so it's like, in my opinion, I think it's more disrespectful that they did that, knowing he was going to say no, because you don't just offer somebody money, right? Like, to be honest, like it's weird because, to be honest, the way they viewed him at this point was, "You're not worth it to us."
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I think it's disrespectful. I do
Is
think
that
it is.
fair? Is it fair that I like to go back and forth? I think that the offer was disrespectful in the way, like, I understand why Eric Armstead, as a player who, played through the MCL just now in the Super Bowl too, like, that's the last thing that he did for the 49ers was like put his body on the line for them. Um and he's, been with the organization for so long. But also from the 49ers, I kind of understand why they felt like he was worth that. They basically offered him what they ended up paying Malik Collins. And, Collins doesn't have an injury history, that injury is like a reoccurring
Mhm.
use injury. So it's gonna come back as long as he's standing on that foot. I mean, knock on wood, maybe it won't, but like most people will tell you with someone that size, that weight, putting pressure on that foot, it's a overuse injury that kind of doesn't go away. Um, didn't go away for the last 2 years. He missed, I think, 13 games in the last 2 seasons. So
And I think, to be honest, what plays a factor into this as well is, so you are getting a cheaper defensive tackle, but you're also not getting as good of a defensive tackle, because so at his
plays more
17
games,
million, he's playing more games. But the thing is too is
but like lower
the
level.
production wasn't, like, just because, like, for example, people are like, "Oh, well, Collins is going to play all season." One, we don't know that. Two, if you look at Collins' his stats, from, because people like to talk stats, right? They like to bring up the stats. Collins' stats weren't that more impressive, even though BA missed a good portion of the season.
Okay, that is such a, I love that you pointed that out, because I've heard people say that, like, they've been like, oh well, like they have the same, production. And it's like, well, the reason that you're down on Eric Armstead is because he's missed games. So if Malik Collins has the same amount of production but played every game, then that means he was like way less efficient in the time. You know what I mean? Like Eric Armstead
Right.
was able to put up those stats with 6 less games. So I do
And
agree with that.
and what's crazy, because, like, I do see Steve-O's comment. Shout out to Steve-O being in the chat today. He says Armstead made more than Kittle at one time. I hated him for no reason. So we're criticizing a player, and this is a thing that I took offense to, is I don't mind the Niners getting rid of Armstead. Like, if you don't think he's valuable for your team, I don't mind it, right? But I do think it's disrespectful to a player, in terms of the reason why he was getting paid so much is he's getting restructured. Like, it's not his fault the team wants to restructure him to get cap space, and he's not going to say no. So for me, it's looking at one of those ones where he's not going to say no to the team to restructure because he's getting money up front, which is benefits a Armstead.
And the
Two,
team. Yeah.
it benefits the team, but then it puts his numbers higher following years, and fans want to make it his fault that the Niners gave him that contract. Like, it is not Armstead's fault that he was offered a contract, because it's what he was worth at the time. And they kept restructuring him to push money back, push money back, push money back. That's not his fault. That's it. Guess what?
Yeah.
The people we should be blaming is John Lynch and the organization for pushing money back, not Armstead. The player is, to be honest, the player taking a restructure and saying, you know what? No, I pushed these numbers back for you. I would have restructured my contract or taken a new deal or an extension if it's one of those ones where you truly are allowed to, what's the word I'm looking for, like, he was disrespectful. Like, the offer, if the offer was more like, okay, like, hey, your numbers are at 17 right now, let's put it down to 10. It would have been
Yeah.
understandable. But the fact that the offer was
I thought that
6,
it was gonna be like 12 or 10. I
I
didn't think
initially thought it was around 8. I was like, "Hey, like, I'm not taking half of my pay." Like, I'm not taking half if there's only one if okay, I understand, like, if I'm taking 5,000,000 less, okay, 10,000,000 less because he's made a lot of money, like, it's understandable. He's from the California area. There's no way I'm taking 2/3
yeah.
of my pay.
I
No
think
way.
that's kind of funny because I think before he put out the actual number, people like saw that clip and they were like, "Oh, come on, you're not being disrespected. The 49ers have paid you so much." And I think when people heard that offer, they were like, "Nope, you're right. That's disrespectful." They're like, "That's kind of a slap in the face." Do you think that like wood cutting would have just like asking, to release him, like wood cutting him or trading him, would that have felt more dignified for him? And would the 49ers have looked like, in my opinion, the 49ers either A, did this to let Eric Armstead have some dignity, like knowing that he was going to say no, but being like, I'm going to give you the opportunity to turn us down instead of us saying we don't want you. Or it could be, if you're going more sinister, the team trying to save face. And instead of just cutting him, being like, oh, well, if we offer him a deal and he turns it down, at least we can say, oh, well, like we wanted him, we tried, but, we just couldn't make it work in our cap.
I think it's definitely one of those ones where the 49ers are the way they did things. Like, if you do approach them, like, hey, like, hey, Armstead, like, we don't think your numbers are gonna work. We're gonna have to look for a trade for you, or we're gonna have to cut you. I think it's as long as you're being transparent with him and you're going to him first and letting him know, like, hey, this is the plan. Then it's not going to be disrespectful. It's disrespectful when I think he felt disrespected because he felt like an extension was coming when he was speaking to the team regarding an extension, and then like I think that's more. So, for example,
It's someone like
so
pulling the rug out from under you because
let
you're
me
like
let me
very much not expecting it.
let me put it this way in a perspective of our in reality for most people, right? Let's say your employer like came to you, Ashley, like you're working, and they're like, hey, we want to promote you. We want to like extend you, like, or
As
you
you
want to.
should. I'm great.
Yeah,
I
like, right, like, okay,
priced for this.
you're feeling good, right? You're feeling
Yeah,
good. You're like, "Oh, you're feeling great." And then your manager comes to you and is like, "Hey, actually, Ashley, we're gonna have to either ask you to take a really, really big pay cut, about 50% or more, or you know what? We're gonna just we're gonna lay you off."
yeah.
Right? Like,
You feel like, what the
you're like, "Wait, whoa, whoa. I thought you valued me because you were getting ready to promote me."
Yeah,
Essentially, that's what essentially in NFL, you don't get promoted. You get an extension. That's their way of getting
yeah.
promoted. So essentially, like, oh, cool, great, right? Like, I'm phenomenal. I'm excited, and then you get told, you know what? Never mind. Like, and I get it's a business decision. The NFL is a business, but it's also too. There's emotions involved. Um,
Are you
there's
thinking says Jason says it's a business decision on both sides. Like, look, you only play maybe 10 games a year and we need to save money for the future. Take this money or bet on yourself and go to the market and get paid. And to be fair, Eric Armstead, like the short clip that he puts out, maybe makes it seem like he has a little bit of resentment for the 49ers. And I think
we
he even admits
understand.
like his first reaction, like any of us, would be like, what the fuck? But then like if you listen to the whole podcast, he does say, like, I think he understands, but he was like, at the same time that I understand you need to do what's best for you, then like I need to go see if I can get more. And he did. So kind of,
And I think too, like, it's a business, right? But there's also the human aspect involved. Like, it's not just a business in terms of like it's hard business. And I think he understands that he understood that um because he mentioned I understood it was a business and I told him, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and bet on myself. He did bet on himself and he got 17 mil. Like,
let's
so
go bulky.
he understood his value, and shout out to him for understanding his value. He's still a valuable
Would a
player, and
different
teams are
team
gonna.
have paid him? Would a different team besides like do you think that it's more that Trent Baalke drafted him and therefore was more willing to take a chance on him? Or do you think he would have gotten more money at some, like, even if it
Mm,
wasn't the Jags, would have gotten something?
I think he may have gotten
I do
a little
feel
bit
like the
less.
money he got from the Jags is pretty crazy. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
I'm pretty sure
But I also wasn't expecting the $6 million for the 49ers. Like I thought there was going to be like a in between.
That's a big gap, right? Like it's
very extremes going on here.
I think he would have gotten less from, for example, because it's reported that there was multiple offers from multiple teams. It wasn't just the Jaguars in this situation. So he may have gotten offered less by another team, which is around 14, maybe say 12. Even then, he's still making more money than the $6 million. So it's like either way, he knew he was worth more than that, and he got what he was worth. And essentially, he signed a bigger deal. But I think the Niners should have approached him, and how Jason said it from the beginning, right? Like, it's a business decision. Like, hey, look, you're only playing 10 games. We can't do that to you. Like, they should just did that from the beginning instead of going, hey, let's extend you, to, hey, actually take this pay cut, or to actually, you know what, we're cutting you. Like that.
Like kind of
there's two different extremes.
This goes to their like accounting error mistake, right? Where they ended up losing their 5th round pick and getting moved to the end of the 4th round, where it's like, it just feels like bad business. Like if you know, like it feels like maybe they didn't do the math before approaching Eric Armstead for the extension. You know what I mean?
I just
like,
read Steve-O's comment. Holy shit.
Figure out.
Holy
I also saw that and had that same response.
Shit. I'm sorry, Steve-O.
I'm really
hope you found a job. I hope you bounce on your feet and you got a job after, because that's crazy.
Says, I got a $1 raise one time when everybody else got 25 cents. I was let go 2 weeks later. I also read that and was like, damn.
I feel bad that like, hit so close to home for you.
I think I'm so better. And then friggin' bam, and you're like, oh, well, never mind.
I feel bad because I hit close to home. I feel bad.
You didn't celebrate too much.
Jeez. Well, hopefully you're doing well. But I think it could be disrespectful the way it went from one stream to the next, right?
Oh, like what I was saying though, really quick is the going from one stream to the next. Besides just disrespectful, in my opinion, I think we're learning a little bit, and we're not going to have like a conclusion on this, but I think it's good to kind of put these things together to see if the pattern continues, where it feels like money-wise on the back end, the 49ers are a little bit messy. They made a mistake giving a player an extra $75K, and instead of reporting it to the league, they text the player like, hey, can you give me that? Imagine you're that player who receives a fucking text from this billion-dollar organization like, hey, on the demo, can you like Venmo me $75K back? You'd be like, first of all, you'd be like, this is a scam. Second of all, you'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that, you idiot. Like, that was your bad.
If I was that player, I would have said, go fuck yourself. Like, legitimately, I would be like, you're tripping. I ain't giving no money back. That was actually already spent. I just bought something. Go fuck yourself. I ain't giving you. You're a $1 billion and you're a $1 billion company. Tripping. Like, and I think that at the end of the day, like, how did you not report that right away?
Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like the 49ers are just like a little bit like for them not being the lemonade stand anymore and having stuff so much more together. Feels like they have these like weird lapse in errors where with the Eric Armstead situation, figure out what you want to do before approaching the player. Absolutely. Don't approach the player for an extension and then 2 weeks later be like, actually, just kidding. How about we offer you a third of your salary? Like, know that you're going to do that ahead of time. Like, before you go to them or to their agents, figure out how to structure your team and what you can offer each person. Like, don't do those things on the fly. Like, it just feels like you're a multi-billion, dollar organization. Why are you making these weird accounting mistakes? Maybe spend less time like buying soccer teams and more time on your actual football organization, because it doesn't seem like you have everything together. But like I said, there's not a conclusion of that. It's just something to keep in mind that they have that's a couple instances where they've had some like weird finance issues that should not be, happening in this giant corporation.
Holy shit.
But I wanted to ask you, because you're big on the draft, about the first round draft strategy. And what brought this to mind is I've heard a lot about MIMS, and I've had Tom Jensen on. He writes for SI with Jose and all those guys.
You shouldn't leave out Grant. All right.
Grant, yeah, all those guys.
I considered those guys now.
I gave him his props earlier when I was saying something. But for Tom, he's been a big advocate of Mims. And from everything he's told me, I've been like, yeah, like that seems like a interesting guy to uh if lands with the 49ers, it would be lucky because I know he's projected somewhere in between like 20 and 26. Tom has even talked about maybe the 49ers trading up. I've been very like pro if there is a guy who they feel like is worth it to maybe trade up in the draft to go get that guy. But then I was doing a little more of my own research because I'm terrible
You're
and
a little
and
psychotic when it
only
comes to research. Let's be honest. You have
yeah.
over research everything. I love it.
Yes. So he only played 8 games. Is it fair for me to say that Mims is kind of the Trey Lance of offensive lines? And I know he played for Georgia, but like I feel like a lot of him is like this big body, this potential, which is obviously amazing. But is there a player that potentially and maybe they wouldn't be able to get up this far depending on what they would want to, if they have their first and second round pick and they want to trade up. I don't know how far they could get. But is there a guy on that offensive line, or would you rather go for like Graham Barton? Because I think he might fall to where the 49ers are. Is there a guy who's actually played on that offensive line more than 8 games and you're betting like he's more of a sure thing? Because I feel like first round picks already are so hit and miss, and now you're trying to project onto 8 games. It just feels kind of dangerous to use your first round pick on a guy who's not like 100% a sure product. Is that unfair? Maybe I'm judging things wrong. Quarterback and offensive line might be different, but just when I hear how little games he's played, I'm kind of like, ooh, I'm a little scared to use, the first round pick that the 49ers have had in such a long time on a guy like that. Maybe if all these offensive linemen are projected to go so early, that might push back some other, positions that could be very valuable, and you might get better value because, they've been pushed down because everyone's taking the offensive lineman. I don't know. What are
I
you
think
thinking the
you're
49ers are going to do
Did
with
you
that
watch
first
my
round
show
pick?
recently? Because I
I
said
watch all
that.
your shows. Oh, did I? Maybe I
Yeah, I
stole
said
your
that.
takes. Sometimes I just listen to things and then I repeat
No,
them.
but you probably didn't, to be honest with you guys. You probably didn't. It was a mock draft. You don't gotta lie. It's okay. I understand you're busy. Um, but I
Which
did
one
say
did
that.
I just listened a couple days ago. You were talking with Josh. Is that his name?
Oh, Jay Harp. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was
So
good.
I did say like similar. Like I don't see the Niners taking him or Guyton because of the limited reps and limited play. And
See, great
with
minds just think alike.
That's right. And then for Mims, it's one of those ones where he only has 8 starts and it's all upside. Like when you watch him, there's a lot of upside. It's he athletic abilities there, he shows up on tape. He has function, he's very strong. He has the ability, the lateral and agility movements. But then when you watch him, he stops his feet during blocks. He's a two-handed puncher, which as an offensive lineman, you don't want to be a two-handed puncher because so offensive line, you don't want to be a two-handed puncher in a corner. You don't want to punch with 2 hands. Reason is the moment you punch with 2 hands, and if you're not hitting, your hips tighten up. She's over here shadow boxing, but your hips tighten up, and if you don't like land, you miss, and you're screwed. So that's an issue. So I'm not a huge fan of Mims. Now, if he hits his potential, he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber tackle. I just
Yeah.
don't see um the Niners drafting him because of the injury. And it's a big injury concern. Like you look at Mims, like he hasn't been able to stay on the field. He hasn't been healthy. He didn't
That's what I'm saying. Like
participate
injury people for the 49ers. Uh-uh.
because
Uh-uh.
like even his soft tissue injuries, it's a hamstring issue that kept him out of playing. It kept him out from the combine. Same thing with Tyler Guyton. Like he hasn't played much. Like if I'm the Niners draft strategy wise, obviously they tried to sign restricted free agent Brock Wright at tight end. So they're
Yeah.
addressing the tight end situation. Like
It feels like they're
and
trying to get people like with the signing of Colton McKivitz, with them bringing all the defensive players in. It feels like they're trying to fill every position, even if they're like with middle class, like kind of more depth piece guys, so that they can go more BPA. Do you think that that's a fair assumption? Like, it feels like they don't want to need to get any player.
Yeah, and you could go BPA, which is obviously the best thing to do in the first couple of rounds, and then usually later rounds is when I say, like, you know what, like, you could take a guy you like, or you could take a position if you need, like, you think, hey, he has potential. But I think you should always go with best player available, even if it's, for example, if that player, for example, is a quarterback. I know people are like, oh, that's stupid. Like, it's stupid to think you could never have too many good quarterbacks, and you'd never know if he's the best player
Either
available.
A, he's
You
better
could,
than Brock Purdy, and then that's great because you have a player on a better player on a rookie deal, or B, he's really good, but Brock Purdy's still better, and then you can trade him and get crazy assets for him.
yeah. So there's a lot of things you could do. Again, I know people are like, oh, that's probably a stupid analysis, like,
I've
or a
heard
comparison.
cornerback. Have
If
you?
corner
I've
falls,
heard
if corner
corner maybe.
falls, but so it has to be a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, or Quincy Mitchell. I think that's the first name. Could be wrong. Pretty sure it is, but it has to be one of those guys. Like, and if no one else really, I don't see anyone else in that first round at 31. Like, when I'm looking at the draft, right? Like, it's one of those ones when you're looking at. There's a lot of positions the Niners could go, and to be honest, if they do go best player available, people aren't gonna like it, but it's probably receiver. Like, to be honest with you, um, so I'm really excited to.
Would that mean like bye bye Debo next year? Or what would
I think
receiver?
Debo's gone no matter what next year, no matter what. Like, because you're not gonna pay two receivers 20 plus million, and I think that's where Brandon Ayuk's contract should be 20 plus
Yeah.
million. Is obviously his cap hit won't be as big in year two, but I think, like, for example, the Niners, the players that could be there, for example, there's a couple of tackles from what I've been hearing. Kingsley, Jordan Morgan, her Tyler Guyton might fall to the Niners. But you could also look at a defensive tackle, Darius Robinson. If Adonai Mitchell is there, I'm 100% taking Adonai Mitchell from Texas receiver. I think he would be the perfect complement to a guy like Brandon Ayuk. Great route runner, good speed. I just think it's the way the draft falls. I don't know how it's gonna fall. Um, a lot of teams might take a quarterback earlier than they should. For example, if Penix, Michael Penix Jr. enters the first round, like some people are saying he might, it's going to drop a really good player. And I think at 31, when I see people like, oh, you can't get a starter day one at 31, that's a false narrative, because this class, you could take some. What's the difference if you take someone at 31 versus early round two, and they start? Like, if you're gonna get a high level player in the first three rounds, like, that's what you're getting. You're getting the athletic ability in the first three rounds, and I think the Niners could go if he's there. I don't see how he is there, but Byron Murphy
Now, with
Jr.
the cornerback position, do you think that they're gonna want to extend Charvarius Ward, or do you think that they might let him walk? Because I think he's gonna be expensive, more expensive than when they got him, at least. Not just because like the cap goes up,
That's
but
a
because he's performed better. You
that's a
know what I mean?
great question. It's the first time I've heard it, and you're kind of right. Like, the numbers have gone up for cornerback play.
Yeah,
He's made the Pro
he
Bowl.
outperformed like where
A
he was
lot
at
of
when
corners.
they drafted for him,
Um,
or traded for him.
man, they could actually look to see what. But the thing is with corner is there's only three corners that should be going in the first round. And some people argue Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri. I only see three. I see Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Mitchell, and I believe Terrion Arnold. A lot of people are high on Nate Wiggins, guys like Cooper DeJean, who I see as a safety. But a lot of people are higher on some other corners, but I just don't see those guys going in the first round. If you decide to go corner at 31, you could, I guess, not necessarily reach, because if you're taking a guy who's projected to go 40 and the top 40, or at 41, when you take him at 31, I don't think it's a reach, because you're not having to trade back up to get someone. So, hey, shout out to Good Company Cleaners LLC. Ashley needs a sponsor for the show. Hit her up in the on Twitter. Hit her up on social media. She needs a sponsor for the show. Get an advertisement on this show for Ashley, so
Let's
she can get an
go.
advertisement. So for me, there's a lot of things they could do. Like, I truly think if they do go corner, I don't think it would be to replace Charvarius Ward. I think you should extend them. I really think
I
Treverius
think
Ward in
so
the corner you
too.
should
I think that's a
extend.
good.
I would give.
I just don't. I have a question. Like with the way that these, because his isn't his contract up at the end of next year? Is that wrong?
I believe it is. Let me
So
double
are
check.
they able to like? Can he say I want to test free agency, or if they try to extend, like they extend him next, like is next year he's a free agent, or they can try to extend him before he hits free agency? Because I
I
just am
believe he
I'm
has
afraid that
a.
he would get a higher bidder somewhere else potentially, not because the 49ers don't want him, but just because they are paying so many guys, and I do think he's like kind of played himself into a higher bracket, you know.
I think the only issue though is they may view his age being an issue because corners at around that 30 range they start to drop off.
Oh yeah,
So they
yeah.
may he is 29
How
this
old is he?
year,
Oh wow.
29,
I don't know why I thought he
but
was like 27.
I believe he has a. I thought he was 27 too. I thought yeah he's 28, 20 gonna be 29 in a few days, in like 30 days. Um, but for him, I believe he has a 12 million, 12.9. I'm not too sure. I have to ask Rohan how the dead cap works in terms of on a void year because he 2025 to 2026 years it voids automatically
What
on the
does
fifth
that
day
mean?
of the 2025 season. So when you restructure someone or when you extend them, for example, when they signed him, I believe they had a couple of void years. So it's to spread the signing bonus um, and the guarantees across a couple of seasons. So I believe he has 2 million on void. I could be wrong. I have to like ask Rohan how that works. Rohan knows like the cap numbers better than me.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's gonna have dead cap. So it's like, do you want to have dead cap on your corner, or do you want to roll him, extend him, where you don't have a higher dead cap? So I don't know how that's gonna work.
And I think like right now, Ward is their only like true. I think Demo's done good, but I definitely, you know what I mean. I feel like if they can keep Ward, they would definitely want to. I just didn't know exactly how the contract stuff works. But I think if he has 2 void years, then like they should be under control if they want to extend him versus like trade him or whatever. I don't think he has the ability, much like Brandon Aiyuk can't like choose to go to another team if he wanted to right now. I don't think if he's under contract, I don't think he can like be like, I demand to go somewhere else, you know.
Yeah, I think they would try to extend him this off season or off season
I
going
was
into camp.
thinking for some reason that he was going to be a free agent, and in that case, I was like, maybe they should, you know, go after a cornerback. But right now, it feels like unless those top three guys that you mentioned get pushed down to the very bottom, that they won't do that.
Yeah, so first round strategy should be going best player available depending on who's there. In my opinion, I'm still going O line. I think the O
I think
line
they
is
should.
O line is the best player available in my opinion. Like
Yeah,
unless it's a few players. For example, if Kool-Aid McKinstry's there, Adonai Mitchell's
exactly.
there. Kool-Aid McKinstry's a cornerback out of Alabama, which I think he'd be the only one that I could see falling out of the top three corners.
I like that
Because of
his
his
name
foot
is Kool
injury.
Aid.
His name is his freaking number 1 overall pick just off his name. His name's amazing. But just because of like the foot injury that he had, I could see him falling, like teams being scared to take him. But he's phenomenal in press, man. I think he's the cornerback 1 on my board, but I know a lot
Well,
of teams don't
see,
use
you
him
were
that way.
talking about him with Harp, the JP Harp guy, right? Didn't he say that those foot injuries can end up lingering and like
No,
changing
he was
though?
we were
Or was that
talking
someone
about
else?
the core surgery that
Oh
Kittle
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Charvarius Ward got.
There we go.
He said he had
There,
a similar surgery, and
there
after
it is.
that he never bounced back the same. Like he was never the same player ever again. He was like, but
Well, too
everyone
bad.
recovers the same. So he had that in a core injury in college, and after that he's like, I wasn't the same player. I didn't have the burst I did when I was going crazy. Well, he didn't say it, but he didn't have the same burst when he was going
It's
crazy.
also crazy, like we never know what these players are going through. I don't think either of us knew that. I knew Ward had. I thought Ward had like a groin thing, and he had a foot thing to start the season. But I had no idea that Kittle. I knew Kittle had a shoulder thing that he's played through for a couple of years, but I didn't know that either of them were going to need core surgery. I know that Ward ended up posting about it, but then I didn't even hear about Kittle until, wasn't it John Lynch that said that they had both gone through that?
Yeah, so John Lynch is the one who said it, and I know looking at things, the way everything works based off of what um Jay Harp said, like a groin, because his was a groin. He goes, that's considered core. He goes, so I don't know
Oh,
what
okay,
they
okay,
had. He was like,
okay.
at least when he had the surgery, that the specialist considered that core. I don't know
Okay.
how that works. I
Makes
think
sense.
that's part of your legs. I'm not a doctor. I don't know that. So I was confused. But he was like, yeah, that's considered the core, like based off of the surgeons and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. But round one strategy, go best player available. If the Niners truly view, like, I don't want them to reach. If you have a second round grade that's like a 50 round, pick 50 on an offensive lineman, don't reach for him at 31. Like, if you have 40 from 30 to 41 on him, that's not a reach in my opinion, because you have to trade all the way back up to come get him. So I think it'd be perfect pick. But it all just depends on, like, they could truly go receiver if Adonai Mitchell's there, and I know Kyle likes him. Kyle's talked about his Texas receivers, talks about him. Um, the only weakness that he has is his run after the catch ability. But he's a
Which is
phenomenal
kind of
receiver.
important for the 49ers, but they have so many guys that excel at that. Maybe they'd be interested in bringing a guy with a different skill set to open up their offense more.
Imagine a 6'3" guy who has 4.34 speed, opposite of Brandon Aiyuk.
So
Um,
fast.
he has great feet, great route running. He has
I
the
feel like
the
these wide receivers get faster every single draft.
Oh, absolutely. He's every year they get better and better because of I tend to think is because of 7-on-7, these college receivers. And so corners and receivers are getting better because of 7-on-7. They're going to good program 7-on-7 programs of learning how to truly run routes, how to truly recognize, just understand coverages. Like, for example, Croc over there, what he's doing with his Elevate program
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
7-on-7. He's going, and they're not just doing anything. Like, they're truly running coverages, they're truly running routes, they're being taught how to play man coverage, they're being taught how to play zone, being taught how to actually attack the blind spots as a receiver. So, like, they're truly understanding the concepts of the positions. And I think as they get to the next level at college, they're going to these really good schools, and they're going to good coaches, and they're being continue to being taught. So I think that's why we're seeing
They're like
receiver levels just
optimizing their skill
elevate.
set
Yeah,
way
like
more. Yeah.
it's phenomenal to see, like, the young receivers grow. So I'm excited to continue to see that portion of everything.
Can I ask you before, because I know you
No,
I know you have to take off really quickly, but they did have a rule change with the returners. And I was wondering, do you think like it would be smart for the 49ers to draft a guy who can more specialize at that position and take over that Ray McLeod role, and maybe turn their special teams, which I feel like under Kyle Shanahan has either been a net negative or neutral at best. It's never been like a positive, but maybe use the rule change as a way to um, get a guy back there that specializes in that. Or if they don't draft a guy, would it be smart to now start using Debo Samuel or Jordan Mason, who's a guy we've seen be able to, break tackles and hit and keep running? If they're not going to freaking ever use him at running back, maybe put him back there. Do you think that they'll make changes to the special teams in that way and try to optimize this rule change? Or do you think they're just going to try to minimize risk and not really do much,
I think
not
they should.
prioritize that position?
I think they should, because it's more like a regular football play now. It's not like a kickoff where high level impact's gonna happen. And we saw this in the XFL when they did it. Shout out to the XFL for giving the NFL
Testing it.
the idea, pretty much testing it and letting the NFL like look at it. So you could put Debo back there because he could break off a long run. I know
Yeah.
some people think he
'Cause
could.
it's supposed to be like a safer play now, right? Like I feel like the reason that prior that teams didn't like to put their star, wide receivers back there is because it was a more dangerous play. But supposedly, I don't know. I don't take much into these like morning shows, but I was at a restaurant and I saw like ESPN was on and they were showing all these graphics about how it's supposed to lead to like so many more touchdowns now and returns, and it's supposed to be like 35% more safe than it used to be and all this stuff. So I was like, oh well, if that's true, are they going to try to utilize that more? But I don't know.
I mean, they should. So, like, it allows you to, for example, like, I saw some people say Debo will return some kicks off of it. man, Debo has like the breakaway speed and everything, but he doesn't have the endurance to like return a kick that far. Like, and I'm not trying to be a
I
jerk
don't
about it.
know.
Like, I don't have the endurance to run 100
They're
yards either. Like,
they're doing that. They're doing that receiver show. Debo and Kittle both signed up for it, so
and I
maybe
thought
Debo
that's
will be like
dropping.
in way better shape now
I thought
because
that was
he'll.
dropping
Oh,
coming
is it
up like
dropping?
soon. Yeah, I thought
Oh,
they
I
followed
thought they
him.
were like filming it right now, but they filmed it prior.
I
Damn.
thought it was filmed this season.
Oh, I thought it was gonna like push them to like train
No.
extra hard this
No,
offseason.
that's why you thought Debo was actually training? You're like, "Oh, who he's training right now? He's obviously on a Netflix." I'm pretty sure it drops, this coming, like, in this season because it was recorded for the 2023-2024 season. I don't know when it's supposed to be it's coming soon.
Okay. Everyone, make sure to get their factual information for Marco. I'm just here for the fun
The
of it.
reason why I know that is because I was super excited when I saw it. So my wife actually, like, it was like, "Hey, did you see that?" I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Why is Kittle on there?" It's like, why like, he's a tight end, like, why is he's not a receiver,
I
like,
know.
so I thought that was
I feel like maybe like ball catcher is like a bad name, you know? So they're
pause.
sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I just pass
Like,
catcher, whatever.
they're ball catchers. That's crazy.
But everyone, please make sure to like and subscribe to Clutch Team Sports. Marco, I always have a great time on these Friday shows. I'm glad that we were able to get it done today with all the stuff that was going on. And everyone, make sure to like and subscribe to Marco's channel also because he's working extra hard today. So he deserves some extra subscribers for that. And then make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to get to 3,000 semi soon if
Let's
possible.
go.
I'm not close. So I need all you guys to like and subscribe.
You're at 2K though. You're at 2K. You're good. You're good.
Exactly,
You're getting
exactly.
there.
Um, but yeah, I know I'll have I think I'm gonna be doing a call-in show this weekend, potentially, because I know Easter and everything. So I hope everyone has a great Easter, but I'm sure that more stuff will happen before Monday. So I'll probably spontaneously go live. So you gotta like or you gotta subscribe to my channel, hit that bell notification so you can see when I get on here. But besides that, I'm gonna be back on here on Monday with Stephanie Sanchez. So yeah.
Let's
Make sure to
go.
like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, to Marco, and everyone. Have a really great Easter with your family if you guys celebrate. And if not,